In today's news, International Women's Day observed, 15 females honored for their contribution to climate change in the BVI, Lavity Stoutt remembered as a man of and for the people, as well as the BVI Investment Club celebrating the legacy of H.L. Stoutt. Ms. Sandy Harrigan-Underhill leads the HLSCC Institute for Education. Professional development kicks off and Carrot Bay Sea Defense meeting held. All this and so much more after a word from our sponsors. You're watching 284 News.
Yo, everything good, Dad?
Aye. This thing got me one way, Daddy.
What you mean?
Ever since I hook up with this thing, I can't eat, I can't sleep. This is the first thing I touch it when I reach home.
What you really? Hey, this ain't like you, you know.
Dad, this thing got me staying home, keeping out that trouble me.
Wow. What your name is?
Shit. I talking about my CCT life.
Don't worry about missing your favorite series, sports, news, and local programming. Come to CCT today and sign up for CCT Live to access over 80 channels. CCT Live. Bring it home.
1 month free trial turn into 5. 5 months turn into, well, you know I huff. I watching ball. I been watching football. Dad, Nickelodeon, Paw Patrol. I am hooked. Hook, I tell you.
Welcome everybody. It's Tuesday, March 8th, 2022. A terrific Tuesday to each and every one of you. I'm Ron Grant coming to you live and direct from Tortola in the Virgin Islands. A happy Tuesday to one and all. Thank you so much for your time. Let's get things off started. 11 women from across different government departments and 4 girls from local schools were all honored by the Office of Gender Affairs for their contribution in climate change and disaster risk reduction management in the BVI. Now the 11 women are Abby Christopher, Tessa Smith-Claxton, Angela Barnett, George Argel Horton, Rosina Norson Gums, Stacey Ann Austin, Irene Smith, Melanie Darway, and Shania Armstrong Jones. The 4 female students are Alexa Hodge and Hannah Bazaz of Elmore Stout High School, as well as Ashelle Harn of Cedar International and Sarah Ramdat of St. George's Secondary School. Now these students were previously selected as the winning entries of the Day with the Governor Climate Change video competition, which was launched in October of 2021. Speaking during the ceremony, which was held this morning in observance of Women's International Day, Minister for Health and Social Development, the Honorable Carvin Malone, said the territory stands to rebuild much stronger with females at the head of the table.
We have to do whatever we could to encourage our entire economy to go the route of sustainable development. So we recognize that if you put a woman in charge, it could be done. If you leave a man in charge, he will have challenges. So the whole thing is so before me today, we have women that have went above and beyond in various fields to assist persons in the area of conservation and fisheries, climate change, policy development, and disaster risk management that is assisting to guide the territory from strength to strength. This reflects that we can build back better with women and girls at the head of the table.
Acting Permanent Secretary within the Ministry of Health and Social Development, Ms. Tasha Bertie, while sharing similar sentiments as the minister, added that climate change globally is affecting females at a much larger percentage than males. She said this phenomenon has transcended to the territory following the 2017 hurricanes of Irma and Maria, which devastated the BVI.
At the United Nations Climate Change Conference in 2021, the UN shared research findings which indicated women are more affected by climate change globally than men are, and that 80% of women and girls around the world are displaced due to climate change. We in the Virgin Islands have seen and experienced firsthand how climate change has also affected our islands following the devastating events of 2017. It is a fact that disasters do not affect all people equally. In the immediate aftermath of extreme events such as hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes, tsunamis, and floods, women are among the worst affected. Women are the ones who have the most most reliant on the community networks for everyday survival and resources. They are forced to seek help and financial resources to facilitate the continuous operations of their homes and the survival of their children, sometimes at the detriment of facing increased incidences of violence, including sexual assault, mental and verbal abuse, as well as physical abuse.
Now, viewers, the acting PS added that these debilitating factors are the reasons essentially why women and girls should be involved in the discourse of making decisions on climate change locally, regionally, and internationally.
They demonstrated a sincere interest and great passion for tackling climate change in the Virgin Islands. You have all made it clear that we each have a role to play to ensure that the BVI is safe for those who live here and who call it home. Therefore, our overall goal at the Ministry of Health and Social Development is to support local national policymakers to fill the gap between the international agreed targets and the national action plans for mainstreaming gender in policy and programs related to climate change and disaster risk management. I therefore am also lending my voice to thank you for all your contributions to the charge on climate change adaptation. I want to encourage you not to get weary in well-doing, but to be mindful that your efforts today will continue to make a lasting impact for generations to come.
Viewers, that was the Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health and Social Development, Ms. Tasha Bertie. Moving ahead, the territory's first chief minister, the late Honorable Hamilton Lavity Stoutt, was remembered as a man of and for the people during his 27th annual memorial celebration and wreath-laying ceremony on Monday. Now, the ceremony was held at the Capoons Bay Burial Ground and saw several distinguished members of the community attending, including elected and government officials and prominent businessmen and women. Speaking during the ceremony, Premier and Minister of Finance, the Honorable Andrew A. Foy, praised the late Stoutt for his contribution to the BVI during his tenure as Chief Minister. He also noted that this is the first memorial that Mr. Stout's now late wife, Mrs. Hilda Stoutt, is not present due to her recent passing. Premier Foy said Mrs. Stoutt was the backbone of the late Chief Minister, and it was because of her being behind the scenes and playing a role that contributed to Mr. Stoutt being the stalwart leader that he was.
Today is about HL, but really and truly, HL couldn't be HL without HS, Miss Hilda Stoutt. Because, as I said when we were dedicating the statue of the late C.B. Romney, and I say today, she was like his gas station. That whenever he ran out of fuel and he goes home or he sees her, she just fill him up. Whenever they say that he couldn't do something, she was that energizer that would put the fuel in him and let him know that, yes, you can. Whenever they said that he couldn't do the college, and we remember those days, and for you who are young, there are those who actually lie down when the backhoe was going to grade off the land and they wouldn't move. But he said he has to do this for generations to come, and many times on the radio they ridiculed him, but when he went home, she was that gas station that says, HL, yes, you can. When they said that the Bluff Road, what we drive now and call the Bluff Road, the Drake's Highway, couldn't be done because it was just a mountain, and they were saying he can't, his wife encouraged him when he went home that, yes, you can. When he said that he didn't have enough education by some standards, but not by God's, to represent the people of the Virgin Islands, to be a chief minister, she re-energized him and let him to know, yes, he can.
Also speaking on the late leader was Deputy Premier and Minister for Education and Culture, Dr. the Honorable Natalia Wheatley, who referred to H.L. Stoutt as a warrior of freedom.
I submit to you that Lavity Stoutt was a warrior for freedom. I submit to you this morning that Lavity Stoutt recognized the fundamental conflict in the world
between colonizer and colonized, and sought to fight for that age-old prize of liberty and justice for his people. He fought for the freedom to grow and develop in the world and to meet our full potential existing among a community of nations living in harmony. If we celebrate Lavity Stoutt simply for his individual accomplishments, then I say to you, we have missed the mark. Those accomplishments have relevance and value based on what they represent for our burgeoning nation. He has become a symbol of what we all should aspire to as champions of our own autonomy. And not just him, but many others.
Now, meanwhile, businessman Mr. Meade Malone also took a trip down memory lane as he remembered Mr. Stoutt as a visionary who had the interest of the BVI at his first priority.
Mr. Stoutt and his words and deeds intuitively lived out the truth as articulated by the late Miles Monroe, that indeed nothing great is ever accomplished by the vision of one person or the aspirations of one person. Indeed, it takes the collective visions and aspirations of a people to achieve great things, and Mr. Stoutt embodied that, and by his actions and deed made sure that it was indeed a reality. If I was to say what was the essence of his success, the essence of his genius, was to embrace the collective and individual vision of the people and move them in a direction towards the achievement of the vision of the greater British Virgin Islands. That spirit of inclusion and the feeling of unlimited potential, inspired by the well-known verse of Scripture, I can do all things through Christ who strengtheneth me, was indeed the thing that drew many of our generation to Mr. Stoutt.
Viewers, Hamilton Lavity Stoutt, the Honorable Stoutt, was the first and longest serving Chief Minister of the British Virgin Islands, winning 5 general elections, 1967, 1979, 1987, 1991, and 1995. He also served 3 non-consecutive terms of office from 1967 to 1971, 1981 to 1983, and then again from 1986 until his death in 1995. Mr. Stoutt also served as a parliamentarian in the Legislative Council prior to the adoption of the 1967 Constitution. Now, the BVI Investment Club joined our community yesterday in honoring the life and legacy of the former Chief Minister of the Territory, Hamilton Lavity Stoutt. Take a look.
Hello, my name is Meade Malone, President of the British Virgin Islands Investment Club. The BVI Investment Club joins our community in honoring the life and legacy of the former Chief Minister of the Territory of the Virgin Islands, the late Hamilton Lavity Stoutt, for his consequential contributions to the development of the territory. Today we mark what would have been Honorable Stout's 93rd birthday. Outside of his administration and development policies for our territory, his love and belief in the people of the BVI is evident in our institutions, achievements, and many of our industry leaders today. His visionary leadership was guided by the biblical verse, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." And so it was Chief Minister Stout's vision to see the economic advancement of Virgin Islanders and belongers that inspired the members of the BVI Investment Club to form our institution. As we celebrate our 30th anniversary this year, our club's existence is also a testament to his leadership and his support of economic empowerment for everyday citizens. We remain grateful for his vision and encouragement and look forward to passing this vision of economic empowerment to the next generation, especially as we all face the uncertainty and challenges of the future. This, we believe, is the most fitting way we can honor Mr. Stoutt and ensure his legacy continues. Today, we join with the BVI community in honoring this son, this illustrious son of the soil, Honorable H. Lavity Stoutt.
Viewers, up next, Sandy Harrigan-Underhill leads HLSCC Institute of Education. When we return, we take an in-depth look at the program and the upcoming professional development. All this and so much more after a word from our sponsors.
There's a reason you get up on a morning. A reason you pick yourself up, start the day. Maybe it's sheer grit. Maybe it's your ethics. Maybe it's because you know people like you are waiting for people just like you. We all have our reasons, and for Republic Bank, that reason is you. Every little thing, every big thing. It's all about making a difference in your life. Because after 182 years, if it's one thing we're sure about, is that the difference is you. We're here to help.
Republic Bank, we're the one for you.
Viewers, welcome back. Thanks so much for sticking with us. The Lavity Stoutt Community College recently appointed Mrs. Sandy Harrigan-Underhill as its first director for the HLSCC Institute of Education. As director of the institute, Mrs. Harrigan-Underhill will work collaboratively with the Ministry of Education to advance their mandates as it relates to the education training needs of the territory. Now, a primary function of the institute will be to work closely with the territory's schools, both public and private, through the Ministry of Education, to obtain data that will inform decisions about the territory's education needs. Recently, I sat down with Mrs. Underhill to further discuss the Education Institute. Take a look.
The newly established Institute of Education at HLSCC has been an initiative that has been a long time coming and discussed. I remember being a principal and being a part of a small group who were discussing the way forward as relates to this institution. Basically, this institution endeavors to provide training from various aspects as it relates to educators, not just in the area of professional development, but we want to be able to fully develop degree programs. We want to be able to look at teachers who are in service, currently in service teachers, with content-only degrees, and provide the requisite training to get them to where they need to be as far as educator-based training. And also we want to be able to expand our horizons to pre-service persons who may be interested in education outside of the current education system. We want to be able to provide degree programs for those persons as well. A huge part of our endeavor is to ensure that our programming is research-based. It's data-driven and research-based. And so in keeping with that endeavor, we want to be able to establish a research component to the institution. So that's just to give you a little bit of background. We envision and we see ourselves within the next decade or less to be the institution of choice in the region, not just in our territory, but in the region when it comes to educator-based training.
In addition to giving an overview of the program, she also spoke about the upcoming professional development sessions.
We envision ourselves to be the institution that provides or facilitates teaching excellence, training across the spectrum when it comes to teaching excellence, beginning with professional development, content for teachers with content-only training, as I mentioned before, and degree programming. We want to make sure that a lot of what we do is also aligned with regional goals. For instance, CARICOM standards for teacher training, or OECS standards for teacher training, and UNESCO standards when it comes to teacher training as well. And I say that is very important because we envision ourselves as part of participating in the global debate when it comes to educator training at some point in the future. So as we are in the initial stages, we are planning for programming. We are proposing a phased approach to our opening, again, because a lot of what we are doing right now is based on available resources. So we are in the planning stages, and what we are endeavoring to do is to begin with professional development for in-service teachers. We're working very, very closely with the Ministry of Education to identify the urgent areas of need with respect to educator training. So I am happy to announce that we are starting our very first professional development next week, March 9th. Promises to be a 4-week course from March 9th to April 1st for K through 2 in our current education system, that is K through 2 in special education. And we are happy that we are able to begin our programming to coincide with Education Week, which is March 13th through the 19th. That shortly should be followed by training in early childhood development, which is another area of critical need for us in our territory. We have a few challenges there, but being that most of the institutions are private schools, but we are reaching out to them to try to garner their interest, their support, and make sure that we give them certain incentives to let them know that they are welcome and that we are also catering to that market. So that would be the next set of sessions that we are offering, and I want to say those sessions will be after the Easter holiday.
Now, viewers, one of the key areas within education is partnership between public and private institutions. Director Underhill also spoke to its importance and how the Institute will ensure that this happens.
I'm happy to announce that one of the very first tasks that I accomplished in I would want to say my second week on the job was to work closely with the HLSCC administration to establish an advisory committee for the Institute of Education. So this advisory committee consists of persons, educators, currently in the field of education who represent all avenues from private to public, but not just private and the public school sectors. They also at various levels of education. So we have a person who represents early childhood. We have someone in the primary. We have secondary, tertiary, but not just levels. We also went as far as ensuring that we have representation from our sister islands and from the private schools. Also a representative from the special education, because special education is a very, very critical area in education. So we have someone on that advisory committee. So as you talk about the important role of the partnerships, this committee is structured and symbolizes that partnership. And as we work together to advance the vision, mission, and goals of the institution, it is this very advisory committee that is going to guide and inform a lot of our decisions. So as you see from the very beginning, we are looking to the future and we are basing it on a strong foundation of partnerships.
Viewers, up next, the Carrot Bay Sea Defense meeting officially held. We have the details of that meeting and so much more. After a word from our sponsors, you're watching 284 News.
So you're saying I can ask this cat any question?
The cat is connected to the computer. You just type in the question, it will read his mind. There's the answer code.
You're the man! I've been looking for this for weeks.
Viewers, welcome back. Thank you so much for sticking with us. On Sunday, March 6th, the government of the Virgin Islands held a community meeting to discuss the Carrot Bay Sea Defense Project. Deputy Director of Public Works and Civil Engineer Mr. Kurt Hodge said that the scope of the project includes protection of the roadway, homes, and properties, as well as creating a system that can withstand a Category 5 hurricane. Take a look.
So one of the things we'll say is that the generation before me, or 2 generations or 3 generations before me, created a sea defense, and that sea defense stood up for a number of years. That sea defense stood up for a number of years and did its job well. However, due to climate change, the weather patterns have changed. Storm surges has gotten a lot stronger. We're encountering a lot more frequent hurricane systems, and the hurricane systems, as you notice, is getting stronger. And all of us, most of us in here, well, I said the majority of us in here, live through armor. So when we took into consideration doing the design for this system, all of those stuff were taken into consideration. So one of the things that were taken into consideration when they were doing this, or the scope that was taken into consideration when we were carrying out this project was, one, what system that we can put in place that would protect the roadway, meaning that this is the vital carriageway between the North Coast area that leads from one end of the island to the next, western end of the island. Also, how can we protect the different properties and people's properties and so forth within the area, as well as the next thing that we take into consideration is once we put this system here, what we would like this system to be able to take. And one of the things that when the system was designed, it was designed in mind for Category 5 hurricane. And when I say Category 5, we're talking about armor. All the existing data from DDM was passed on to the engineers, and they basically took that information when they did the design for this project. Everyone here know how strong armor was. If there's such thing as a Cat 6, armor would have been classified as a Cat 6. So we know how strong the hurricanes are starting to come now. Another thing that was taken into consideration when they did this system is the ecosystem. We didn't want to put something down being that this is a fisherman's village. We all know the history of this village, and it's still a fisherman's village because I passed there and those guys were there cleaning fish. So one of the things we wanted to make sure is when we put something down that it does not affect the ecosystem or the aquatic marine life that's within the area. So one of the key pertinent stuff is that when they create the system, it has to be able to be integrated into the ecosystem and not cause any damage. One of the other things that was taken into consideration as well was the drainage. There's not much drainage issues within this area because we're pretty much close to the coast and pretty much everything runs out to the sea. We're not changing too much of the slopes within this area. The most we do is add in a little bit more to your coastal area. So drainage is not going to be that much of an issue, but drainage was taken into consideration when this project was designed. It's important to note that this project was designed by FDL Consultants, Inc., and they are pretty much a engineering firm, the engineering firm that did this project, and they did it started doing it from 2019, and they completed it in 2020.
Viewers, Mr. Hodges' presentation also touched on the environmental and social impact assessment of the project before taking questions from the community members of who expressed concerns about the government's proposed gravity wall and 34 feet stone revent project. Now, it's of course important to this community after what took place in 2017. So we do wish the government of the Virgin Islands the very best as they continue to execute this very important project, this sea defense project over in Carrot Bay. Viewers, that is all the time we have. But of course, before we go, I want to wish you, all the women out there, happy International Women's Day, of course, this evening on The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman, featuring the women that love us. We have a very special Women's Day special. So we encourage you to view that this evening. Of course, we will be here with you all week, bringing you the latest in news across the region as well as internationally and of course locally. Be sure to follow us for updates at 284media.com, and of course like us on Facebook at 284media and 284BVI on Instagram and Twitter. I'm Ron Grant. It is always a pleasure, and I will see you again tomorrow as we deliver your daily dose of local, regional, and international content. We're 284 News, your source for honest and impartial news, right here on 284 Media. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Brilliant Hands and Minds tutoring services, one-on-one tutorials in math and English, intense homework assistance, academic enrichment, school projects, effective communication and public speaking development, sign language for adults and children on Saturdays only. Registered with the Virgin Islands High School Certificate Program, Brilliant Hands and Minds can help you too. Offering intense curriculum-based training to help you or your loved ones get their high school diploma. It's time to make your family's education a #1 priority. Hurry, space is limited. Brilliant Hands and Minds Learning Center. We are the trained education professionals.